welcome, everyone. Thanks a lot for coming and taking part in this roundtable on science and policy in times of multi-crisis and dissent. It's a subject that's very close to the heart of ENSSER, European Network of Scientists for Social and Environmental Responsibility, which has worked on this for, how long is it now, 17 years. Nearly our whole board is here and many of our members, and we very much appreciate the members of the European Parliament and the delegates of the European Commission speaking here this afternoon in reaction to our report. That's the first thing I should say really, is the formal presentation of this report. It's just a few pages. It's too little to bind into a booklet. We want to be concise and clear, and it's not very hard to be concise about this subject. It's just a few things that need to be said, but they need to be clear. We've summarized it in 11 recommendations at the end, and the whole report is just 9 pages. So I hope that also means it's not too difficult to react for the speakers, but that may not be the case. I don't know. I'm very curious to hear. I think I shouldn't take any longer, and I'd like to ask Johanna to start the recording of Martin Häusling.
Ich darf die Vertreter von ENSSSER und alle, die zu dieser wichtigen Veranstaltung kommen, sind recht herzlich im Europäischen Parlament begrüßen. Ich kann leider nicht da sein, deshalb meine kurze Botschaft. Dieser runde Tisch beschäftigt sich mit einem extrem wichtigen Thema. Heute heißt ja alles, es muss science-based sein, es muss alles wissenschaftlich begründet sein und keine Ideologie. Wenn man sich aber die wissenschaftlichen Begründungen manchmal anschaut, hat man den Eindruck, so ganz unabhängig ist die Wissenschaft ja dann doch nicht. Es werden viele Studien gemacht, die tatsächlich beauftragt sind, auch von großen Unternehmen. Wer bei der Kommission vorstellig wird, muss man auch ehrlich sagen, hat meistens einen Hintergrund auch sehr eng zur Industrie. So richtig unabhängige Wissenschaft, die brauchen wir eigentlich. Wir müssen das besser beurteilen können. Wie entstehen wissenschaftliche Studien? Wer steht dahinter? Wer finanziert auch vor allem diese Studien? Und ich hoffe, wir kriegen heute Antworten auf dieses wichtige Thema, damit wir wirklich sagen können, eine wissenschaftlich gut begründete Arbeit, das ist für uns wichtig. Aber sie muss auch wirklich unabhängig sein. Und diese Unabhängigkeit, die sehe ich hier in vielen Bereichen manchmal nicht mehr gegeben. Ich wünsche euch und Ihnen einen guten Verlauf der Veranstaltung und bedanke mich nochmal fürs Kommen.
Right, that was a nice message of support from Martin Häusling for our report. Are you ready, Nini? Okay, go ahead.
I just want to say good afternoon and thank you all for being here. And just to say a few things that I'm going to be, of course, helped by my document here because I feel a little bit stressed, but that's okay. Our discussion today takes place at a moment when the relationship between science, geopolitics, and energy policy has become unmistakably clear. The global energy crisis of recent years, intensified by geopolitical instability and most recently by the escalation of conflict in the Middle East, has shown how deeply scientific evidence, political authority, and economic decision-making are intertwined. So scientific evidence has long warned us about the vulnerability of our current energy systems and their impact on the environment and on health, of course. And yet the reality of political decision-making often diverges from those scientific recommendations. The war in the Middle East has heightened concerns about global oil and gas supply stability, disrupted market expectations, and many debates around energy security. As a result, governments across the world, including in Europe, have sometimes responded by reinforcing short-term fossil fuel strategies in order to try to stabilize prices and guarantee supply. The tension reveals a central dilemma in the science policy relationship. Science evidence may point clearly towards a long-term systemic transformation, but political decisions must also respond to immediate geopolitical pressures, market volatility, and social instability. The energy crisis illustrates that policymaking rarely follows a purely evidence-based path. It is most accurately described as evidence-informed, operating within a landscape of competing interests and constraints. The issue of frame is therefore crucial. If the energy crisis is framed primarily as a geopolitical security problem, policy responses will prioritize diversification of fossil fuel supply chains and strategic reserves. If it is framed as a climate emergency, as emphasized by the United Nations Environmental Programme, then the priority becomes rapid acceleration of renewable energy systems and structural energy transition. The authority of expertise also becomes contested in such contexts. Scientific institutions, including the European Environment Agency, provide robust data showing that renewable energy deployment is not only environmentally necessary, but increasingly economically competitive. However, political decision makers must also weigh industrial competitiveness, employment, infrastructure capacity, and geopolitical alliances. Now, this leads us directly to the well-known dilemma that we all know between evidence-based policy and policy-based evidence. Ideally, policies should follow the best available scientific evidence. In practice, however, evidence is often interpreted or selectively mobilized to justify decisions that are already shaped by political or economical priorities. The energy crisis linked to geopolitical conflict therefore highlights something fundamental. The gap between science and policy is not simply a problem of communication between experts and politicians, not at all. It reflects the broader interactions between knowledge, power, institutional authority, and political economic interests. Now, the purpose of this roundtable is precisely to explore further these complex interactions following the recommendations of the ENSSER conference, May 2025, in the Academy of Athens, that I guess many of people in here might have attended. Now, the power of this roundtable is precisely to explore further these complex interactions between the recommendations, again, I say, of the ENSSER conference. Means that we don't want to close the discussion here. We want to step forward and to see how can scientific expertise maintain credibility and authority in politically charged environments? How can policymakers integrate scientific evidence without ignoring the economic and geopolitical realities they face? And how can we ensure that short-term crisis management does not undermine the long-term transformation that science tells us that is necessary? They're not merely academic questions, those. They lie at the heart of how societies use science to solve problems and navigate crises, whether those crises are pandemics, the new technologies, energy, climate, pollution, biodiversity, or any kind geopolitical, and how we should design scientific research capable of answering difficult questions. There is the clue also. There is no research designed to meet this, let's say, to meet it, to confront with it. So there should be some way, a way to answer those difficult questions, how to balance scientific integrity, democratic legitimacy, and strategic stability. Now, I look very much forward to a thoughtful and constructive discussions here. Sorry for the abrupt beginning. And I just want to thank you all for being here today, even if it was a little bit hard to get inside. And yes, and we do ask to be excused of those who had a little problem. Sorry for this. And let's go on now with another film. So.
Thank you very much, Neni.